stocks or bonds? You want passive income, but you're trying to figure out which is best? This video is for you.
This is the Commandments of Wealth podcast.
This is Alex.
I'm Joel.
And we are wealth managers from a wealth management firm based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where we serve 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors Canada-wide, coast to coast.
And we're going to be going over some of the strategies and insights that we have learned and implemented with our clients and business owners to help preserve, grow, and pass on the wealth to the next generation. And today we have an article that has to do with cash flow, passive income, and which is better? Is it dividend stocks? Is it bonds? I guess, Alex, you want to bring up the video?
Yeah, absolutely. So this article comes to us from the Motley Fool titled TSX, which stands for Toronto Stock Exchange, Dividend Stocks versus Bonds. Which is the better buy?
So I guess first we have to define what passive income is. Or you had a good example.
So yeah, I think that's a very fair way to start. So most of us are familiar with being an employee at least some part of our lives. So that means that you have to show up to work, do the job in order to get paid.
That's active.
So that's an example of active income because you're active, right?
I'm working.
Yeah, you're working, exactly. Now, passive income would be something like, owning a dividend paying stock, owning a bond, owning an investment real estate.
Owning a business where you don't have to go to work.
Yeah, owning a business where someone else is managing that, not you. So the end result is that you have very minimal active involvement in the actual generation of the income that's coming to you. So exactly, that cash flow is coming to you with minimal involvement on your part. So with this article, the point is that the two typically most common ways that the average person has the access to passive income would be through either buying and holding bonds or buying and holding dividend paying stocks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the case that these guys are making for stocks?
So in the case for dividends, they're using RBC Royal Bank as an example. They're saying that as of the day that this article was written, October 25th, 2022, that RBC has an attractive 4.12% dividend yield, which just means that if you had $100 of RBC stock, you'd be getting $4.12, in dividends.
On a yearly basis.
On a yearly basis, okay. Right? And not only that, but that over the last 5 years, the dividend payout has increased by 6.3% each year. In other words, it's increased by 35% over the past 5 years.
So what that basically means is if the capital appreciation of the stock RBC 10 years from now, instead of it being 100, it's 200. Mm-hmm. Instead of it paying us $4, it would pay us $8, something in that ballpark.
Exactly.
So that's a dividend grower.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the pros. You have a dividend growing, you get capital appreciation. Mm-hmm. How is this tax? How's a dividend tax? Oh, and this is what you wanted to show, right?
Yeah.
So what do those blue bars signify?
So great. So these blue bars signify over the past 20 years, the growth of the dividend yield.
More than 20 years, eh?
Yeah, more than 20 years. Yeah, 1975.
So 50 years.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the dividend grow. This is the growth of the dividend, not the stock.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the growth of the dividend. We want to highlight that. So I wanted to ask you though, Joel. So I noticed that here during 2007, 2008, there's like a plateau, and as well in 2020 is a bit of a plateau here. What happened to the growth of the dividend yield during those times?
What happened in 2020?
2020,
COVID?
There was
COVID recession?
Yeah, COVID and lockdowns. Yeah.
And what about 2008?
In 2008, yeah, there was a financial crash. Yeah.
So what happens a lot of the times, especially with companies who have these large either regulatory moats, mm-hmm. especially regulatory moats, mm-hmm. Is sometimes the government come down and say, listen, it's inappropriate for you to continue to raise your dividend mm-hmm. while so many people are in financial stress, while we're trying to bail you out, while we're trying to save the economic system. Mm-hmm. So in the cases of RBC, I know, and the U.S. banks as well, is they paused their dividends. So they stopped raising, but they kept them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you see a plateau. And then as soon as that regulatory stress was relieved and the financial stress relieved,
they went back
to raising their dividend along with their profits.
Absolutely.
So that's what that plateau is. And there's different type of that's just the dividend growth. Mm-hmm. And if you want to focus on like CNR, I know we talk about CNR. Do you have the graph for CNR?
Yeah, I do. So this is Canadian National Railway.
Perfect. So what's the dividend on the Canadian National Railway?
So the dividend yield is
Less.
1.86.
So it's 2%, and Canadian National Railway has been about 2%. But I know Canadian National Railway as a stock has also appreciated. And it's appreciated at a faster pace than the RBC. So CNR has been getting about 15% annualized a year and paying out about 2%.
Right.
So when you take a look at that graph in terms of the dividend growth, has their dividend also been growing on an annualized basis?
Yeah,
It has.
It has, absolutely.
Now, do you see a plateau to the same degree in those times of stress?
No,
Not
no,
to the
not
same
not
degree,
to the same
right?
degree. Yeah, like
So
just
CNR, the reason why rails, or I love rails, is they don't have a regulatory mode. They have more of an infrastructure mode. How many railways have they created, or actual rail on the floor? They haven't made new railways for a long time. They have a monopoly, right? CP has a monopoly. And then there's another infrastructure company that we really like that's, I think, almost in every Canadian's portfolio at this point.
Enbridge. Yeah, exactly.
Right? Enbridge. So what's Enbridge's dividend?
So Enbridge's dividend is 6.63.
Okay. So Enbridge has a bigger dividend than CNR and Royal Bank.
And most savings accounts.
And it's in most savings accounts, right?
And higher than most savings
most
accounts.
savings accounts.
Yeah.
So when you look at their dividend has also been increasing. But their capital appreciation of the stock is not as strong as CNR and Royal Bank. And that's the give and take between dividend stocks. Is usually if you have a higher paying dividend stock, it's going to pay you more out of their net profits in terms of cash flow. But as a result, the stock won't appreciate. They're not going to be able to appreciate the stock because they're paying out all their profits to you.
Exactly.
CNR it retains more of its profits, pays a smaller dividend, but has more capital appreciation. RBC is middle of the ground.
Exactly.
Right? So when you're looking at a stock, the thing to take into account is the higher the dividend, you're going to be foregoing something else, usually capital appreciation.
Exactly.
The smaller the dividend, you're going to be probably foregoing more consistency from
the dividend.
the actual cash flow.
Yeah,
dividend,
the actual
right?
cash flow component.
And then the biggest threat to stocks we've been dealing with in 2020 and 2022, what is it?
It's going to be the volatility.
Right?
Right.
They can swing up and down aggressively.
Yeah.
And it can be painful. But if you have the ability to hold on and buy more when these things go down, you'll be increasing your cash flow, you'll be laddering down, and you'll be getting over time more capital appreciation.
Exactly. So those are all powerful benefits to the stocks. I'd also just like to throw in just like a monopoly type example, right? So how do you play the game of monopoly and how do you win? It's to hold as many utilities, property, as possible, right? Because these are all things that generate you cash flow. Exactly.
Someone lands on your square, they gotta pay you.
They gotta pay you up.
Do anything. I don't gotta roll the dice.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's how you win. So now what's happening is by having as many of these shares as you can get, and not overpaying for them, that also helps too, right? That's going to be what's going to allow you to generate a nice, attractive amount of passive income that will allow you to live that financially independent lifestyle down the road. So let's actually switch gears then and talk about fixed income.
The case for bonds.
The case for bonds.
Okay. So a dividend is something a stock pays you. A bond doesn't pay a dividend, right? What does it pay us?
It pays a yield or interest. Is the other word.
Yield.
Yeah, an interest yield.
Okay. So how would you explain an interest yield on a bond?
So I think most people are familiar with like GICs. So let's say that you had $250,000 or round down. Let's just say $100,000. Simple figure, right?
Okay.
So if you had $100,000, put it in for 1 year, making 4%.
Yeah.
That means that at the end of that year, you would have been paid your 4% interest.
Yep.
Right? But you'll also get that $100,000 back.
So you collect the $4,000 on an annualized basis, and they'll return that $100,000 to you.
Yes.
So you're getting back. I put 100 after 1 year. I'm getting 104 back.
Exactly.
That's a bond. Okay. It sounds similar to a dividend-paying stock. Is there any volatility to a bond compared to a stock?
Yes, but it's different. So the volatility that you have to watch out for is the inflation, actually.
Is that eroding the buying power?
Because it erodes the buying power. Because the thing is, if you're going to put your money or lock it away for a year, let's say, sure, you're going to get your $100,000 back, But look at what we're experiencing right now. We're like inflation, 40-year high, 8%, let's say.
The
right?
$100,000 might not
Be
be
worth $100,000, if you were to take it to the store and try to use it. So you did get your money back. You didn't have to see any of this, throughout the year.
It was like more.
Yeah, exactly, right? But the end result is that your purchasing power is less. And I will throw it like a caveat, and I think that's a little unfortunate, but like on your people's statements, you don't really get to see the effect that inflation is actually having on your buying power, right? You'll see the volatility, you'll see the price fluctuations, but you don't see what in fact is inflation is having on your buying power. So to that end, I would say that is the primary risk that you're taking. But let's talk about taxes, though.
Okay, taxes on a bond.
Yeah. So a bond or fixed income, it's going to be considered interest income, which is the same as you going to work.
Employment income.
It's
exactly the same.
Exactly. So 100% of your income is taxed. So if you make 80K a year, that whole 80K is subject to tax. If you make 10K from your bond or from your GIC, that 10K is going to be added to your income for the year.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's taxed less preferably than a dividend.
Yeah.
And less growth than a stock in terms of capital appreciation.
Yes. And just for the record, so while it's a little bit more of a convoluted calculation for a dividend, dividends are the more preferential way to be taxed, right? It's going to be
first it's capital gains.
then dividends, and then interest income. So while capital gains is at 50%, dividend is a bit over 50%, but it's a lot less than 100.
Yeah.
Right?
Interest income.
Yeah, so moral of the story is if somebody was magically going to give me the check and the CRA knocked on my door and said like, hey, Alex, somebody gave you a check for 10 grand. We just want to double check what type of income was that. I would say, oh, it was a capital gain. But if I couldn't say that, then I would say, oh, well, it was dividend, obviously.
Income.
And if I couldn't say that, then I'd say like it was a gift. No, I'm joking. No, it's interest income. But yeah, so we just wanted to highlight that. So again, that really does also factor into why you would hold what the way you do.
Stocks versus
bonds.
So in conclusion, right? The article, like in the beginning of the article, what did it say?
So the beginning of the article, it was basically just saying,
which is better? Okay. So
take it away. Drive it home, Joel.
Drive it home? Okay. Yeah. So in conclusion, right? Me and Alex were talking about this. We talk about this a lot in our office. If you're talking about making cold, hard money, the most, you're maximizing how much money and you're emotionless. You are buying a stock or equities.
Yeah.
Right? The con is you're going to have a lot of volatility. But if you can survive that volatility, there is enough history looking back 100 years that will show you a stock will do better than a bond. Is a bond bad? No. If you want to smooth out the ride, right, then you want to have a bond. If you want more safety and you want the same amount of cash flow, then a bond will be for you.
Right.
Reality is they probably play well together, where you can maximize the amount of income and cash flow you're getting, smooth out the volatility, and collecting both, right? Now, on top of that, there's some other asset classes that can also be used, right?
Yeah. So, for example, in the insurance world, you can use something like an annuity, right? Where an annuity functions very similarly to a bond, where you're giving an upfront amount of money. Let's say it's $200,000. They're going to give you the same thing. Okay, interest rates right now of the day are like 5-6%.
Yeah.
So you're basically going to be getting 5-6% on that, $100, $200, $500,000 for whatever the time period you set. So let's just say that it's for life. Now the difference is that at the end of the bond or the GIC, you would get that $500,000 back, right? And you get to keep the interest payments that you were getting each of those years. For the annuity, you can either have it set so that when you pass away, the amount goes to the beneficiary, or you can have it set so that the beneficiary continues on with those payments, right? So again, you have options. Just depends. You have another asset class.
Yeah, I would definitely say that you want to look at all of these options together to create a diversified portfolio that allows you to maximize your wealth while sleeping good at night.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is to get in touch with someone that knows and can explain these asset classes to you and shows you which one's the best for you.
Yeah.
And I guess that brings us to our commandment of wealth.
Exactly. I think the commandment of wealth for today is going to be investing today is cash flow for tomorrow.
Yeah. So no matter what you're doing, what asset classes you want to use, invest today, cash flow tomorrow.
Exactly.
This is the Commandments of Wealth podcast.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.